BBC Radio Leeds.
5:06. Good evening to you. I'm Darragh Corcoran here for Andrew Edwards, who's not too well today, so get well soon, Andrew. But in the meantime, I'm taking you through this evening's news, and strenuous efforts are underway to try to secure a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Palestinians say there have been 100 deaths in Gaza, a quarter of them children. Israel says 3 of its citizens have died from Hamas rocket attacks in the past 6 days. Now, the Egyptian Prime Minister, Egypt next door, of course, Hisham Kandil, who's leading mediation efforts in Cairo, says a truce could be close. But the violence has continued, with Israel hitting a media building in Gaza. We'll have this report now from Jerusalem with Richard Galpin.
The Israeli Air Force and Navy say they've hit about 80 targets in Gaza today, including a second strike on an office block used by local and international media. It's been confirmed a member of the militant group Islamic Jihad was killed there. Israeli officials say Palestinian militants have fired dozens of rockets into southern Israel, causing some minor injuries. Alongside the violence, negotiations continue in the Egyptian capital Cairo to bring about a ceasefire.
Well, let's get a perspective on what's happening in Gaza from West Yorkshire. And I have 2 people for you to listen to, each, I think, representing either side of the situation here. First of all, welcome to Gilad Amit, who's the Israeli emissary to the Leeds Jewish community. Good evening to you.
Hello, good evening.
From Israel yourself, of course, living in Leeds for 3 years. And also David Ward, who's the MP for Bradford East. Good evening to you, David.
Good evening.
Met you the other day there, showing your solidarity with Palestinians in the demonstration in Bradford there. So, Gilad Amit, first of all, what is your feeling now and those of your Jewish friends in Leeds on the latest bloodshed in Gaza?
Actually, I think by saying, a bloodshed is not exactly the right term to use, because what is being actually reported at the moment is what's happened in the last week. But actually, we need to go back 7 years from 2005, when Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. There's not even one Israeli who lives in the Gaza Strip. And over the last 12 years, there have been 12,800 rockets launched at the Israeli southern citizens who live there, over 1 million Israeli citizens. So it's not really a bloodshed. It's just something that, we have to deal with a terror organization. Hamas has been identified by the US, by the European Union, and by Canada as a terror organization. And people need to understand that.
Let me put that point to you, David Ward, in showing sympathy for the plight of the Palestinians, and many people have, of course. But isn't the problem terrorism itself? And this seems to be the only weapon, almost, that the Palestinians use, isn't it?
So you're now saying the Palestinians are terrorists?
Well, that's the view from the Israeli side. That's how they're classed. The US regard Hamas as a terrorist organisation.
It's an elected government. We might not like it, but it is. Look, what we want to do is stop the killing of all Israelis, all Palestinians. That's the first thing that we need to do, to stop the killing that's taking place. We could go back 7 years. We could go back several hundred years to find out who believes started all of this. The important thing is who's going to stop this. The Palestinians will always, they haven't got an army, they haven't got tanks, they haven't got aircraft. This massive power that they face means they will always come off far worse in these exchanges. And the first thing to do is for international pressure to be applied to both sides to stop this killing.
Well, I'll put this question to you, Gilad Amit, as regards... I'll return to this point about bloodshed. You say there isn't bloodshed, but of course we're seeing on our TV screens children covered in blood, and it's difficult to get any sympathy for the Israeli state when we see that happening, isn't it?
First of all, I would like to say that it is very sad when innocent people are getting killed on both sides. This is very important to emphasize. I did not say that the Palestinians are terrorists. I did not say that. What I did say is that Hamas, the leadership in the Gaza Strip, is a terror organization. And it's not said by Gilad Amit. It's been said by the US, by the European Union, and by Canada. It's not what I say. Now, if you look, I'm just on the website, and it says here that a missile has actually hit a school in Ashkelon. So you need to know that the Hamas are aiming at civilian targets. They're aiming for schools, for hospitals, and this is something that Israel do not do. And we feel very, very sorry when we hit civilians. We don't want to hurt them.
Isn't it right, though?
Just let me finish the point.
Yes,
but if we are hitting them, we feel sorry for civilians, but they're actually Hamas is aiming for civilian targets, and they are not sorry. This is actually their success if they are hitting. And the only reason why there are only 3 people casualties from Israel is because Israel has prepared to this round, and for 4 years have equipped with a very, very good system that is called the Iron Dome, that actually intercept missiles flying from Gaza.
We've seen that on TV. Yeah. Isn't it true, though, that, Israel is a strong country, quite a strong military power, and let's be honest, has the key to solving this? What is required, do you think? What has the Israeli government to offer to bring a solution to this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that actually Israel, using the foreign affairs minister, using the prime minister, using the president, using all the very high up officials, are making phone calls and speaking to leaders all over the world and trying, first of all, to explain the situation, but also to urge them to get to a ceasefire. It's very important people realize Israel won't cease fire. Israel wants people to be safe on both sides. And let me promise you one thing. The second missile stop being launched from the Gaza Strip, not even one attack by the IDF will happen. That's the important thing, and I think the history actually showed it in the last 12 years.
David Ward, isn't the problem that this is such a polarised problem, that what we really need is peacemakers here who can see it from both sides? But that's sadly lacking, isn't it?
Well, I try to see this from both sides. I condemn every single rocket that is fired from Gaza. Does Gilad condemn the illegal settlements?
Well, that's a separate point, but
it's not. This is so much to do with what is the point, because people say, where does this start? Who was first? And yes, there'll be no rockets fired, and then that would lead to no attacks from the IDF. But of course, if all the illegal settlements were vacated and the land given back, there wouldn't be any rocket attack.
Well, we could get into a lot of detail. I appreciate that's a point, David. I appreciate that's a point you're making there about the illegal settlements. We could get into a lot of individual, smaller details, but the bigger picture is this is a very, very polarised situation where there doesn't seem to be a lot of common ground, and that isn't common ground what we need to establish.
There's 1.5 million people who are in a prison in Gaza. 1.5 million. This is something that's been going on for 40 or 50 years. And yes, I condemn every single rocket that is fired, and I won't do a Jenny Tong on this and say, what would you do in that situation? But it gets us nowhere. We have to stop the killing, and there has to be, and it will only be achieved by international pressure, predominantly from the United States, which says that this has got to stop.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed. Gilad Ahmed, just a final word from you. International pressure needs to be borne on Israel to move on this. Let's ask you this. What is required to bring peace?
I'll tell you that, first of all, thank you for Mr. Ward for bringing this topic of settlements. I will touch it very, very shortly. There are no Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip from 2005. So there must be a distinction between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. This is very important to what he's talking about is 5 million who live in the West Bank. And I'd be very happy to invite it to another argument.
Okay, we can take that argument on perhaps again another time. Perhaps you'll both disagree on that. But, the initiative has to be with the Israeli government on this, doesn't it, to actually solve it? They have the power. What should they do?
Like I said before, you have the Prime Minister, you have officers who are trying to get to a ceasefire by talking to other parties among the international community. That's the important thing. And maybe one last sentence. People need to understand it is in the hands of the Hamas to stop it. Israel will not attack.
Okay, thank you very much.
Want to talk.
I do appreciate your time, Gilad Ahmed, and thank you as well, David Ward. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. It's a debate which will no doubt continue, and at the moment, the television coverage suggests that we are looking, hopefully, at a ceasefire, with the Egyptians looking like they may broker the ceasefire and at least stop the missiles temporarily. But as regards a solution, well, it's one that has gone on for some years at this stage already.